We need you to postpone your interview. My mother said it casually, like she was asking me to pick up milk. Your sister's engagement party is that weekend, and we need you here to help set up. I stood in their kitchen, car keys still in my hand, the afternoon light cutting through the window and landing directly on my father's face. He didn't look up from his newspaper. Mom, I've been waiting 3 months for this interview. It's for the senior project manager position. I can't just... Exactly. She turned from the stove, wooden spoon in hand. You can reschedule. This is Sienna's moment. She only gets engaged once. My jaw tightened. And I only get one shot at this job. My father finally spoke, voice flat. Your sister always comes first. You know that. The words hung in the air like smoke. Not shouted. Not apologized for. Just stated, as if it were a fundamental law of our household that everyone had agreed to accept me. I set my keys on the counter. Slowly. Deliberately. My hands were steady, but something inside me had just cracked wide open. No, I said quietly. My mother blinked. Excuse me? No. I'm not rescheduling. I'm going to that interview. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that presses against your ears, the kind that comes right before something breaks. My father lowered his newspaper for the first time. His eyes narrowed. We're not asking, Bennett. We're telling you. I looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time in my 32 years, I didn't flinch. Then I'm telling you I won't be there. I picked up my keys and walked toward the door. My mother's voice followed me, sharp and shaking. If you leave now, don't expect us to forgive this. I stopped. My hand rested on the doorknob. Part of me wanted to turn around, to apologize, to fall back into the role I'd played my entire life. But another part of me, the part that had been silent for too long, whispered something different. I'll take that risk, I said. And I walked out. My name is Bennett Cross, and I am 32 years old. I work as a project coordinator for a mid-sized logistics firm in Portland, Oregon. I live in a modest one-bedroom apartment with a view of the river, a place I've rented for 6 years because I've never been able to save enough for a down payment. Not because I don't make decent money, but because every time I start to build something for myself, my family needs something first. I'm the middle child, though you'd never know it from how our family operates. My older brother, Trent, moved to Singapore 5 years ago and rarely comes back. My younger sister, Sienna, is the sun everyone orbits around. Beautiful, charming, dramatic in ways that somehow always feel justified. Growing up, I was the easy one. The one who didn't cry when my birthday party got canceled because Sienna had a dance recital. The one who didn't complain when my college fund got redirected to pay for Trent's study abroad program that he quit halfway through. I remember my 10th birthday. I'd asked for a small party, just a few friends, maybe pizza and a cake. My mother said yes. I spent weeks imagining it, planning games in my head, deciding which friends to invite. 3 days before my birthday, Sienna fell off the monkey bars at school. Sprained her wrist. It wasn't serious, but she cried for hours, and my mother held her like she'd been mortally wounded. We need to postpone your party, my mother told me that evening. Sienna needs our attention right now. You understand, don't you? I nodded. What else was I supposed to do? The party never got rescheduled. My birthday came and went. My mother made me a small cake, sang quietly while my father checked his phone, and Sienna sat on the couch with her wrist wrapped in an ace bandage, watching cartoons. That was the first time I learned the lesson. Sienna's pain was louder than my joy. And loud always won. When I was 16, I saved up for months to buy a guitar. I'd been teaching myself to play using library books and YouTube videos, practicing in my room with the door closed. I finally had enough. I was going to buy it that Saturday. Friday night, my father called me into the living room. We need to borrow some money from you. Just for a few weeks. Sienna's senior photos are more expensive than we thought, and we want her to have the best package. I handed over the cash. The guitar fund disappeared. So did the few weeks. At 18, I got accepted into a summer internship program at a tech company in Seattle. Paid housing, great networking, a foot in the door for my career. I was thrilled. Then my parents sat me down. We need you home this summer. Your mother's having surgery on her knee, and someone needs to be here to help out. Sienna's too busy with her college prep program. I stayed home. I drove my mother to appointments, picked up prescriptions, cooked meals. The internship went to someone else. When I graduated college, I got a job offer in Denver. Good pay, room for advancement, a fresh start. I was packing my apartment when my father called. We're going to need help with the house payments for a while. Business has been slow. Just until we get back on our feet. You can stay in Portland, right? Cheaper to live here anyway, and we're close if we need you. I stayed. I rented the apartment by the river. I sent them money every month. They got back on their feet within 6 months but never told me to stop sending the checks. I didn't ask. It felt safer not to. That's who I've been. The steady one. The helper. The person who steps aside so everyone else can move forward. And until that moment in their kitchen, I'd never said no. After I left their house that afternoon, I drove aimlessly through Portland. Past the neighborhoods where I used to deliver papers as a kid. Past the high school where I spent my lunch periods tutoring other students for free because I was so good at helping. I ended up parked by the river, watching the water move. My phone buzzed. Texts from my mother. You're being selfish. Sienna is heartbroken. She thought she could count on you. Call us when you come to your senses. I stared at the messages, feeling something unfamiliar rise in my chest. Not guilt. Anger. I started scrolling back through our text history. Months of messages, all the same pattern. Can you swing by this weekend? We need help moving furniture. Sienna's car broke down. Can you cover the repairs? We'll pay you back. We're short on the electric bill. Just this once. I counted. In the past year, I'd given them over $18,000. Furniture, car repairs, bills, Sienna's wedding deposits, my father's business expenses. I'd asked for repayment exactly twice. Both times they'd said, family doesn't keep score. But they did keep score. They just only counted what I owed them. I opened my banking app. My savings account had $3,200. After 6 years of working, 6 years of stable income, I had less saved than most people half my age. Because every time I built something, they borrowed a piece of it. And I'd let them. Because saying no felt like betrayal. I sat there for over an hour, watching the sun set over the water, and realized something I should have seen years ago. I wasn't part of the family. I was a resource. A backup plan. A safety net. A person-shaped checking account who occasionally needed to be reminded not to have his own dreams. That night, I went home and opened a notebook. I wrote down every time I could remember being asked to step aside. Every canceled plan, every redirected milestone, every moment I'd swallowed my disappointment so someone else could have their spotlight. The list filled 11 pages. I stared at it, this archive of a life lived in the margins, and felt something harden inside me. Not cruelty. Clarity. I couldn't keep doing this. If I did, I'd wake up at 50, still renting, still alone, still sending checks to people who'd never once asked if I needed help. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to demand apologies or acknowledgement. I was just going to stop. Stop saying yes. Stop explaining myself. Stop waiting for them to finally see me. I was going to draw a line. And I was going to hold it. The test came 3 days later. My father called while I was making dinner. Bennett, I need you to co-sign a loan for Sienna. She and Hayden want to upgrade their venue, but the bank says they need someone with better credit. I stirred the pasta slowly, phone on speaker. How much? $12,000. It's nothing. Just a signature. You won't have to pay anything. I knew that wasn't true. Co-signing meant if they defaulted, the debt became mine. And given Sienna's history of unpaid credit cards and my parents' habit of borrowing without returning, the odds were high I'd end up covering it. I can't do that, Dad. Silence. Then carefully, what do you mean you can't? I mean, I'm not in a position to take on that kind of liability. It's just a signature. It's a legal obligation. His voice shifted, sharpening. So you're saying no? I took a breath. I'm saying no. After everything we've done for you. The phrase landed like a stone. After everything we've done for you. The universal weapon of parents who've kept a ledger you never agreed to. What have you done for me, Dad? The question hung there. He sputtered. We raised you. We gave you a home. We supported you. You gave Trent my college fund. You asked me to skip career opportunities to run errands. You've borrowed $18,000 from me in the past year and never paid it back. We're family. Family helps each other. Then help me. Tell Sienna to work with the budget she has. Tell her I'm not a bank. You're unbelievable. His voice turned cold. Sienna was right. You've always been jealous of her. I hung up. My hand shook as I set the phone down, but I didn't call back. I didn't apologize. I finished making my dinner, ate slowly, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and a text from my mother. You've changed. I don't even recognize you anymore. I read it twice. Then I deleted it. If standing up for myself meant becoming unrecognizable to them, maybe that wasn't a bad thing. That weekend, I didn't go to Sienna's engagement party. I'd thought about it. Imagined walking in, seeing their faces, the cold shoulders and whispered comments. Part of me wanted to show up just to prove I wasn't afraid. But then I realized something. I didn't owe them my presence. Especially not at an event that had cost me a career opportunity they'd dismissed without a second thought. So instead, I drove to the coast. I rented a small cabin in Cannon Beach, the kind with a fireplace and a view of the ocean. I brought books, my laptop, a bag of groceries. I spent 2 days in complete solitude. On the first night, I sat on the deck with a blanket wrapped around me, watching the waves crash against the rocks. The sound was overwhelming, loud and relentless. It drowned out everything else. For the first time in weeks, my phone was silent. I turned off notifications. No texts demanding explanations. No calls guilt-tripping me back into line. Just me. Just the ocean. Just the space to think. I pulled out my notebook and started writing. Not a list this time. Questions. What do I actually want? If I could design my life without anyone else's input, what would it look like? Who would I be if I stopped trying to earn their approval? The answers came slowly, like pulling thread from a tangle. I wanted stability. A home I owned, not rented. I wanted a career that challenged me, not one I'd stayed in because it was convenient for everyone else. I wanted relationships built on mutual respect, not obligation. And I wanted to stop feeling guilty for wanting those things. I'd spent 32 years living according to someone else's script. My parents decided I was the responsible one, so I became responsible. They decided Sienna was the priority, so I became background noise. But none of that was law. It was just habit. And habits could be broken. I thought about the interview I'd refused to cancel. It was in 2 days. If I got the job, it would mean more responsibility, more travel, less availability for last-minute family emergencies that somehow always became my problem. And that was exactly why I needed to take it. By the time I left the cabin, something had shifted. I wasn't angrier. I was calmer. Clearer. The resentment I'd carried for years felt less like a wound and more like information. They'd taught me I didn't matter as much as Sienna. I'd believed them. And now I was choosing to believe something different. I drove back to Portland, unpacked, and laid out my interview clothes. When my phone buzzed with another message from my mother, I didn't open it. I didn't block her. I didn't respond. I just let it sit there, unread, while I prepared for the next day. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for permission to put myself first. I was just doing it. The interview went well. Better than well. The hiring manager, a sharp woman named Adriana, asked about my experience managing complex logistics under pressure. I told her about the projects I'd led, the systems I'd built, the problems I'd solved. She nodded thoughtfully. You're clearly capable. But I have to ask, why are you still in a coordinator role after 6 years? Most people with your resume would have moved up by now. I hesitated. Then I told her the truth. I stayed because I thought I needed to be available. For family. I'm realizing now that was a mistake. She studied me for a moment. Family's important. But so are you. If we bring you on, you'll be traveling frequently, working long hours during high-stakes projects. Can you commit to that? I met her gaze. Yes. Absolutely. She smiled. Good. We'll be in touch by the end of the week. I walked out of that building feeling 10 feet tall. For the first time in years, I'd put my career first. And it hadn't killed anyone. 2 days later, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Then my father. Then Sienna. Finally I answered. Hello. It's Mom. Her voice was tight, strained. We need to talk. About what? About your behavior. Skipping your sister's party. Refusing to help with the loan. Ignoring our calls. Bennett, this has gone on long enough. I leaned back in my chair. What do you want me to say? I want you to apologize. And I want you to make things right. How, exactly, do I make things right? She exhaled sharply. You can start by being there for your sister. She's getting married. This is a huge moment for her. And you're acting like it doesn't matter. It matters. But so does my career. So does my life. Your life. She sounded genuinely confused. Bennett, you're fine. You have a job, an apartment. What more do you need? The question stunned me. Not because it was cruel, but because she genuinely didn't understand. I need to not be treated like a backup plan, I said. I need to build something for myself without being expected to pause every time someone else needs something. That's what family does. We help each other. No, I help. You ask. That's not the same thing. She was quiet for a long moment. So what are you saying? You're done with us? I'm saying I'm setting boundaries. If you need something, ask. But I'm going to start saying no when it doesn't work for me. That's selfish. Maybe. But I'd rather be selfish than invisible. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but I didn't feel bad. I felt free. I didn't hear from them for a week. No calls, no texts, nothing. At first, I wondered if that meant I'd been disowned. But then I realized something. They were waiting. Waiting for me to crack, to apologize, to come back to the way things were. I didn't. I went to work. I met with Adriana for a second interview. I started looking at apartments closer to the office, places with better light and fewer memories of years spent waiting for my life to start. My phone buzzed occasionally. Sienna posted photos from her engagement party. My parents were in most of them, smiling wide, toasting champagne. No one mentioned my absence in the captions. It was like I'd never been expected to be there at all. One afternoon, my brother Trent called from Singapore. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Bennett. His voice sounded strange, almost cautious. Mom called me. Said you're having some kind of breakdown. I laughed bitterly. Is that what she's saying? She said you've been distant. Refusing to help. She's worried. Did she tell you I've sent them $18,000 in the past year? Or that she asked me to skip a career-changing interview for Sienna's engagement party? Silence. Then quietly, she didn't mention that. That's because they only tell the version of the story where I'm the problem. Trent sighed. Look, I'm not saying they're perfect. But they're family. You can't just cut them off. I'm not cutting them off. I'm just not letting them walk over me anymore. Same thing in their eyes. Then maybe their eyes are the problem. He didn't argue. We talked for a few more minutes about his life in Singapore, the weather, safe topics. Before we hung up, he said something that surprised me. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. I left because I couldn't handle being the golden child. You stayed and became the workhorse. Neither of us won. It was the most honest thing anyone in my family had said to me in years. 2 weeks after the engagement party, my father showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find him standing there, hands in his pockets, looking older than I remembered. We need to talk. I stepped aside, let him in. He glanced around the apartment, taking in the small space, the second-hand furniture, the life I'd built on what was left after everyone else had taken their share. Your mother's upset, he started. I know. Sienna's upset. I know. He frowned. You don't seem bothered by that. I'm not responsible for their feelings. His jaw tightened. You're still part of this family. You don't get to just opt out when it's inconvenient. I'm not opting out. I'm opting into my own life. What does that even mean? I sat down, gestured for him to do the same. He stayed standing. It means I'm not going to drop everything every time someone in this family needs something. It means I'm not co-signing loans or skipping interviews or sending money I can't afford to give. We've never forced you to do any of that. You haven't had to. You just made me feel like I didn't have a choice. He stared at me. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true. He exhaled slowly, looking away. We're in trouble, Bennett. Real trouble. The business is failing. We've got creditors calling every day. Your mother can't sleep. I can't fix this on my own. And there it was. The real reason he'd come. Not to apologize. Not to hear me. To ask for help. How much do you need? I asked, though I already knew I wasn't going to give it. 30,000. Maybe more. We're trying to restructure, but the bank won't extend us any more credit. If we don't pay by the end of the month, we lose everything. I felt the old familiar pull. The urge to fix it, to save them, to prove I was useful. But this time I recognized it for what it was. The trap. I don't have that kind of money, I said. You could get a loan. Use your credit. We'll pay you back. No, Dad. No. He looked genuinely shocked. You're just going to let us lose everything? I'm not letting you do anything. This is your business. Your debt. Your choices. We're your parents. And I'm your son. But that doesn't make me your ATM. He stared at me, face reddening. I can't believe how selfish you've become. Then don't, I said calmly. Believe whatever you need to. But I'm not giving you the money. He left without another word, slamming the door behind him. I sat in the silence that followed, waiting for the guilt to hit. It didn't come. Just a strange, steady calm. The next day, I did something I'd never done before. I opened a new bank account. A separate account they didn't know about, couldn't access, couldn't accidentally discover, and guilt me into draining. I transferred 70% of my paycheck into it. Left the rest in my old account for bills and necessities. From now on, my savings would be invisible to them. Then I sat down and wrote an email. Mom, Dad, Sienna, I've been thinking a lot about our family dynamic, and I've realized I need to make some changes. Going forward, I won't be available for last-minute requests, financial assistance, or obligations that require me to put my life on hold. This doesn't mean I don't care about you. It means I care about myself too. If you need something, please ask in advance and respect that my answer might be no. I hope you can understand. Bennett. I read it 3 times. Then I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The responses came within minutes. My mother said this is cruel. You know we're struggling. Sienna replied, wow. So much for family. My father didn't respond at all. I closed my laptop and went for a run. 5 miles along the river, headphones in, letting the music drown out everything else. By the time I got back, the adrenaline had faded, replaced by something quieter. Relief. The guilt tripping escalated over the next week. My mother called and left voicemails, her voice thick with tears. I don't understand what we did wrong. We've always loved you. Why are you punishing us? Sienna sent long texts detailing how I was ruining her wedding planning, how she'd always looked up to me, how I was breaking our family apart. My father sent one message, you're making a mistake you'll regret. I read them all. I didn't respond. Each message was designed to pull me back into the familiar pattern, to make me feel responsible for their pain. But I'd learned something in therapy, something I'd started attending after the engagement party blow-up. Their feelings were not my responsibility to manage. I could care about them without letting them control me. One evening, my mother showed up at my apartment. I saw her through the peephole, standing in the hallway, looking smaller than I remembered. I opened the door. Mom. Can I come in? I hesitated, then stepped aside. She walked past me, sat on my couch, hands folded in her lap. I've been thinking, she said softly, about what you said. About feeling invisible. I waited. I don't think we made you feel that way on purpose. Sienna was just louder. She needed more. And you always seemed fine. I wasn't fine, Mom. I was quiet. There's a difference. She nodded, eyes glistening. I see that now. But Bennett, we're in real trouble. Your father's business is collapsing. We might lose the house. And I need you. There was the need that had defined our relationship for as long as I could remember. I'm sorry you're going through that, I said carefully. But I can't fix it for you. I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm asking you to help. Help how? Alone. Just enough to keep us afloat while we figure things out. I shook my head. I can't do that. I've already given you everything I can spare. Her face hardened. So that's it. You're just going to watch us drown. I'm going to let you handle your own problems. The way adults do. She stood abruptly. You've changed. And not for the better. Maybe, I said. But I'm not drowning anymore. She left without saying goodbye. I locked the door behind her and sat in the quiet apartment, feeling the weight of her disappointment settle around me. But beneath it, something stronger. The knowledge that I'd held my ground. A week later, I received an offer letter from Adriana's company. Senior project manager. 60% salary increase. Benefits. A clear path to leadership. I accepted immediately. The same day, my father left a voicemail. We need to meet. All of us. Family meeting. Tomorrow night. I called him back. I can do tomorrow. But I'm bringing paperwork. Paperwork. If we're going to discuss money, I want everything documented. How much you're asking for, repayment terms, everything in writing. Silence. Then, that's not necessary. It is for me. If you want my help, we do this properly. He agreed, reluctantly. The next evening, I arrived at their house with a folder. Inside were printed bank statements, a list of every payment I'd made to them over the past 3 years, and a blank promissory note template. My mother, father, and Sienna were already seated in the living room. They looked tired, strained. The house itself looked different. Smaller. Less polished. I sat across from them, folder in my lap. So, you wanted to talk? My father cleared his throat. We've been discussing our options. We need approximately $40,000 to settle our debts and keep the business running. I pulled out a pen. Let's talk terms. Sienna frowned. Terms? Yes. If I'm loaning you money, I need a repayment schedule. Interest rate. Collateral. My mother looked horrified. You can't be serious. We're family. Exactly. Which is why we should treat this like a proper business transaction. So no one gets hurt. My father's face reddened. This is insulting. No, I said calmly. It's practical. I've given you over $18,000 in the past year. None of it has been repaid. If we're going to continue this pattern, I need guarantees. We don't have collateral, my father admitted. Then I can't help you. The room fell silent. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. So you're really going to let us lose everything? I'm going to let you deal with the consequences of your own decisions. That's not cruelty. That's how life works. My mother stood, voice shaking. Get out. I gathered my folder. Gladly. As I reached the door, my father called out. You'll regret this. I turned. Maybe. But I'll regret it less than spending the rest of my life being your safety net. I left. And for the first time in 32 years, I didn't look back. 2 months passed. I started my new job. The work was intense, demanding, exactly what I needed. I traveled to 3 different cities in the first month, led a team of 12 people, solved problems that actually challenged me. My apartment lease ended. I moved into a larger place closer to downtown, one with actual sunlight and a kitchen that didn't make me feel claustrophobic. I bought furniture that wasn't secondhand. I put art on the walls. I built a life that looked like mine. My family didn't contact me. At first, I checked my phone obsessively, waiting for the inevitable guilt trip or crisis. But days turned into weeks, and the silence held. I learned through Trent that they'd filed for bankruptcy. Lost the business. Had to sell the house and move into a rental. Sienna's wedding was postponed indefinitely. Part of me felt terrible. But a larger part felt something unexpected. I hadn't caused their problems. I just stopped solving them. One Saturday morning, I was having coffee at a local shop when my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, but only if you're ready to listen. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. We met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe halfway between my new apartment and their rental. My mother looked different. Grayer. Smaller. She ordered tea and cupped it between her hands like she was trying to warm something frozen inside her. Thank you for meeting me, she said. I nodded. Waited. We lost everything, she continued, voice soft. The house, the business. We're starting over in our 60s. It's terrifying. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. She looked up, eyes wet. I wanted to blame you. For not helping. For setting boundaries when we needed you most. But my therapist helped me see something. You're in therapy? She nodded. Court mandated. Part of the bankruptcy process. And she asked me why we expected you to sacrifice everything for us. Why we never asked what you needed. I felt something crack in my chest. I don't have a good answer, she continued. Except that it was easier. You were always so capable. So steady. We took advantage of that. And I'm sorry. The apology hung between us, fragile and unexpected. Thank you, I said quietly. I'm not asking for money, she added quickly. Or help. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What we did. How we treated you. What about Dad? Sienna? She sighed. Your father's still angry. He feels betrayed. She's starting to understand, I think. But it'll take time. I sipped my coffee. I'm not coming back to the way things were. I know. And I'm not asking you to. I just wanted to tell you that I love you. And I'm proud of you. For standing up for yourself. It was the first time she'd said those words in years. Maybe ever. I love you too, Mom, I said. But love doesn't mean I have to set myself on fire to keep you warm. She smiled sadly. I'm starting to understand that. We talked for another hour. About small things. Her new apartment. My job. Neutral territory. When we parted, she hugged me. Briefly. But it felt different. More honest. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. 3 months later, Sienna called. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Bennett. Her voice was different. Less performative. Can we meet? Why? Because I owe you an apology. And I need to say it in person. We met at the same cafe. She looked tired, less polished. Her engagement ring was gone. Hayden and I broke up, she said. Turns out planning a wedding without money makes you face things about yourself. He didn't like what he saw. I'm sorry. She shook her head. Don't be. He was right. I've been spoiled. Entitled. I never had to work for anything because you and Mom and Dad always smoothed the way. I stayed quiet. I've been thinking about the loan thing, she continued. How Dad asked you to co-sign. I didn't know he was going to do that. And when you said no, I was furious. How dare you? But then everything collapsed. And I realized something. What's that? You were the only one being honest. Everyone else was pretending everything was fine. You were the only one who saw reality. I exhaled slowly. I didn't want to hurt you. I know. But I needed to be hurt. I needed to face consequences. She paused. I'm working now. It's humbling. But I'm learning what it means to earn something. That's good. I just wanted you to know that I get it now. Why you left. Why you said no. And I'm sorry for making you feel like you had to choose between us and yourself. Her apology landed differently than my mother's. Rar. Earned. Thank you, I said. That means something. Are we okay? She asked, voice small. We're getting there. She nodded, relieved. We talked for a while longer. She told me about her job, about living in a studio apartment for the first time, about learning to budget. I told her about my work, the projects I was leading, the life I was building. When we parted, she hugged me tight. I'm proud of you, she whispered, even if I never said it before. I drove home that evening with tears in my eyes. Not sad tears. Something else. Relief, maybe. Or hope. 6 months after I'd walked out of that family meeting, I sat in my apartment on a Sunday morning, coffee in hand, watching the rain streak down the windows. My phone was on silent. No urgent texts. No crisis calls. Just quiet. I'd been invited to Thanksgiving at my parents' rental. My mother had called personally, voice tentative. No pressure. Just dinner. We'd love to see you. I'd said yes. Not because I felt obligated. Because I wanted to. The difference mattered. I thought about who I'd been a year ago. The person who canceled interviews for engagement parties. The person who drained his savings account because asking for boundaries felt like selfishness. That person was gone. Not erased. Just transformed. I'd learned something crucial in the past 6 months. Setting boundaries didn't make me cruel. It made me honest. And honesty, even when it hurt, was the foundation of real relationship. My family had reacted to my boundaries with shock, anger, guilt-tripping. They'd called me selfish, ungrateful, changed. And maybe I had changed. But change wasn't the problem. Staying the same would have been. I pulled out my notebook, the one where I'd written those 11 pages of times I'd stepped aside. I flipped to a blank page and wrote something new. Things I've gained since drawing the line. A career that challenges me, an apartment I chose, not settled for savings account with actual money in its self-respect, the ability to sleep without dreading my phone ringing, relationships built on choice, not obligation, the knowledge that I can survive disappointing people, freedom. I stared at the list. Each item represented something I'd fought for, something I'd been told I didn't deserve or need. My phone buzzed. A text from Adriana. Great work on the Henderson project. You're up for promotion to director. Let's talk Monday. I read it twice. Director. A title I'd never imagined I'd have, because I'd never imagined I'd be allowed to want it. I typed back, thank you. Looking forward to it. Then I set my phone down and looked out at the rain. Somewhere in the city, my parents were probably worrying about money. Sienna was probably working a shift at the store. They were dealing with their consequences, learning their lessons. And I was here, in my own space, building my own future. Not because I'd abandoned them, but because I'd finally stopped abandoning myself. Thanksgiving arrived cold and clear. I drove to their rental with a bottle of wine and a pie I'd bought from a bakery. Not homemade, because I'd stopped pretending I had time for things I didn't enjoy just to prove I was good enough. The rental was small but tidy. My mother answered the door with a genuine smile. Bennett. Thank you for coming. Inside, the table was set simply. No expensive china, no elaborate centerpieces. Just plates and food and people. My father nodded at me from his chair. Sienna waved from the kitchen where she was mashing potatoes. Trent had video called in from Singapore, his face on a tablet propped on the counter. There's the legend, he said when he saw me. The man who said no. Everyone laughed. Even my father cracked a smile. We sat down to eat. The conversation was different from years past. No one bragged about promotions or houses or accomplishments. We talked about small things. A movie my mother had seen. A coworker of Sienna's who reminded her of someone from high school. My father's new hobby of woodworking. When my mother asked about my job, I told them. About the promotion. About the projects. About the travel. She listened, really listened, and said, that sounds wonderful. I'm so glad you're doing something that makes you happy. No dismissal. No comparison. Just acknowledgement. After dinner, my father pulled me aside. I owe you an apology, he said gruffly. I was wrong. About a lot of things. You were just trying to protect yourself, and I made you feel guilty for it. Thank you, I said. I'm proud of you, he continued, voice thick. Even if I never showed it. You built something good. You did it right. I felt my throat tighten. I appreciate that. He clapped me on the shoulder once, awkwardly, then walked away before either of us could get too emotional. Later, as I was getting ready to leave, Sienna caught me at the door. Hey, I just wanted to say thank you. For what? For not enabling us. For showing me what it looks like to respect yourself. She smiled. I'm trying to learn that. It's hard. But I'm trying. That's all anyone can do, I said. I drove home that night with a strange feeling in my chest. Not quite forgiveness, not quite closure. Something in between. Progress. My family wasn't perfect. They still had patterns to unlearn, habits to break. And so did I. But for the first time, we were moving in the right direction. Because I'd stopped waiting for them to change and started changing myself. 3 months later, I accepted the director position. My first act was to hire an assistant, someone to help manage the workload so I didn't burn out chasing success the way my parents had. I bought a small house on the outskirts of Portland. Nothing fancy, but mine. Fully mine. No one else's name on the deed, no one else's expectations in the walls. The day I moved in, I stood in the empty living room and felt something settle deep in my bones. This was what I'd been working toward all along. Not just a space, but the right to occupy it without apologizing. My mother called that evening. I heard you bought a place. Congratulations. Thank you. Can I come see it sometime? I smiled. Yeah. You can. She came the following weekend. Walked through slowly, touching the walls like she was memorizing them. It's beautiful, she said. You did good, Bennett. I did, I agreed. Not arrogant. Just true. She turned to me, eyes serious. I know I can't undo the past. The years we took you for granted. But I want you to know I see you now. Really see you. I know, Mom. And I'm going to keep working on that. On being better. On not just loving you, but showing it in ways that matter. That's all I ever wanted, I said. She hugged me. Longer this time. Like she was trying to make up for all the times she'd let go too soon. A year after I'd walked out of that family meeting, I sat in my home office, laptop open, reviewing a project proposal. My phone buzzed with a text from Sienna. Guess who just got promoted to assistant manager? Party popper. I smiled and typed back. That's amazing. Proud of you. Her response came quickly. Learn from the best. You showed me what it looks like to actually work for something. I set my phone down and looked around my office. Framed degrees on the wall. Photos of me at work sites, leading teams, solving problems. A bookshelf filled with industry manuals and novels I actually had time to read now. This was the life I'd built when I stopped asking permission to want things. When I stopped waiting to be chosen and chose myself instead. My family had expected me to always step aside. To be the safety net, the backup plan, the person who made everyone else's life easier at the expense of my own. For 32 years, I'd met that expectation. And for the past year, I hadn't. The difference was everything. I wasn't estranged from my family. We talked regularly, saw each other on holidays, maintained relationships. But the relationships were different now. Built on honesty instead of obligation. Respect instead of guilt. They'd learned to handle their own problems. I'd learned that letting them struggle wasn't cruelty, it was necessity. And somewhere in that painful process, we'd all become better versions of ourselves. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back porch. The Portland sky was turning amber, the kind of light that makes everything look softer than it is. I thought about the person I'd been a year ago. Exhausted. Resentful. Invisible. And I thought about the person I was now. Confident. Successful. The journey between those two versions hadn't been easy. There had been tears, confrontations, moments where I'd questioned whether I was doing the right thing. Nights where I'd laid awake wondering if setting boundaries made me the villain. But I'd survived those doubts. And on the other side, I'd found something I'd never had before. Not the fragile, temporary peace that comes from keeping everyone else happy. But the deep, lasting peace that comes from knowing you matter. From knowing you don't have to earn the right to take up space. I raised my glass to the sunset, to the year I'd survived, to the life I'd built. To drawing the line, I whispered. And somewhere in the fading light, I felt the last piece of guilt fall away. If you've ever felt like you had to choose between yourself and your family, know this. Choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival. For years, I thought love meant sacrifice. But real love, the kind worth keeping, doesn't ask you to disappear. I'm not saying my family is perfect now. I'm not saying we've erased decades of patterns overnight. But we're trying. And we're trying because I finally stopped pretending. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is draw a line and hold it. Even when people you love are standing on the other side, asking you to erase it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be chosen. I had already chosen myself. And that made all the difference. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if this resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that subscribe button. Because there are more stories coming. Stories about standing up, speaking out, and finally putting yourself first. You're not selfish for wanting to be seen. You're human. And you deserve better than a life spent in the margins.